Welcome to the UK Medical Freedom Alliance. We are the most recognised and respected organisation campaigning for your right to informed consent, bodily autonomy and medical choice. We are the voice of ethical medicine.
Hello everyone, welcome to the UKMFA podcast, and we're delighted to have back with us Caroline Pover, who we first interviewed last year, and pretty much on the same date, Caroline, I was looking back. So in case people don't know who she is a multi-talented woman. She's an award-winning author, she's an entrepreneur, public speaker and philanthropist. Very sadly, she was COVID vaccine injured, but despite battling with her own ongoing symptoms and health issues, she has been the chair of trustees for the UKCV family and has kind of spearheaded the campaigning along with a group of these brave men and women. So we first met at the People's Vaccine Inquiry press conference last February 2025, where Caroline spoke on behalf of the UKCV family about the experiences of the vaccine injured and bereaved and her observations from attending and watching every session of the COVID Inquiry Module 4, which is no mean feat. So she first came on our podcast in May last year, and we talked then about her reflections on the COVID Inquiry, the Module 4 that she just finished watching, and also discussed her incredible book that she had just published then called Worth a Shot, Secrets of the Clinical Trial Participant Who Inspired a Global Movement. And that book documented the shocking story of Brianne Drezen, the AstraZeneca COVID vaccine trial participant who sustained catastrophic and life-changing vaccine injuries. And that is a brilliant conversation, and I will put a link to that conversation in the show note. So we won't cover that same ground today. So without further ado, welcome back, Caroline, and it's just great to catch up with you. I can't believe it's been a year, and you've had a busy few weeks. The COVID Inquiry Module 4 report has finally been published on April the 16th, along with Baroness Hallett's video statement. And then since then, dynamic woman, you have put together and published another book, this time with Charlotte Crichton, called Fallout from the Rollout, case studies the UK COVID Inquiry didn't publish. And I have my copy here, which is mirrored, but you can see it behind Caroline. So there's lots to talk about. But first, before we get into that, how are you doing?
I'm okay, actually. Thank you. Yeah, I had, I don't know if we talked about the therapeutic phlebotomy treatment that has been a life-saving treatment for me. And I had a blood out yesterday, so I'm on top form today.
Brilliant. So that's keeping you going and keeping your energy up, is it? To do
I do a few different things, but the bloodletting has been the number one thing. But I can go 4 weeks now in between sessions, which is huge because I used to have to do it every week. So that, along with copper, my high copper intake, keep me going. Yeah. So I don't do much else. I do some anticoagulants, natural anticoagulants, and CoQ10, but on the whole, I don't do a lot now. I say that, but it's a lot of effort to kind of stay balanced and not fall off the tightrope. But in terms of taking lots of things, I don't take a lot.
And would you say your health's in a better place than it was this time last year?
Yeah, I mean, in the last year. So it was May last year when I did a couple of things, electrolytes. I started adding that to my own protocol, and homemade electrolytes. They gave me 3 hours extra functioning every single day. They were dramatic improvement on the electrolytes. And then the other thing I did also in May last year was I started doing some. It's difficult to explain, but it's based on Bradley Nelson's work. It's the emotion code and the body code. And I met a fantastic practitioner, so started working regularly with her. And that also has had a huge impact. So for a year now, I've been able to walk the dogs most days. And I've gone 3 months without a relapse. So yeah.
That is amazing news. So yeah, praying that just continues.
Thank you.
you get full health eventually. And that will be really encouraging as well for them. I'm sure many vaccine injured who will be watching this. And I know everyone's doing their own healing journey, and it often requires different things for different people. But it's just so encouraging when you hear that people can still make improvements all these years on.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think maybe what we could start is by discussing the vaccine injured and bereaved community's reaction to the Module 4 report, which was released recently. Now, I've only just started wading through it. It's 288 pages long. I don't know whether you've managed to do it all. But just from reading the introduction and watching Baroness Hallett's 10-minute video statement, I am absolutely appalled by what I'm reading. So her video, she doubled down on the safe and effective narrative. She called the jab rollout one of the few, quote, success stories of the pandemic, and even stated they'd saved 450,000 lives in England alone, which is just the most extraordinary claim. And I'm just going to read a few quotes from the introduction to the report. So just so people know how it's been framed, because then you can kind of, talk around that. So it says the vaccination program was an extraordinary feat. For the vast majority, the vaccines protected people against the most serious effects of COVID, saved lives, important role in reducing the spread of the virus. It took the pressure off the healthcare systems and helped to reduce the need for lockdown restrictions. So they saved us from lockdown, apparently. That a small number of people declined to take up the offer of a vaccine. So they're going to look at vaccine hesitancy, which was a global issue driven by the sharing of false information and fueled by the fact that they were new. So therefore, they're treating this hesitancy as a problem to be solved, but not a legitimate medical choice. That's the framing of the report. They also acknowledge the suffering of those like yourself whom the vaccines led to serious injury or death, but then went on to say there were effective systems in place to assess the safety and efficacy of COVID vaccines, including rigorous trials and regulatory approval processes, and the taking of prompt action when any problem was identified. I'm sure you'll have a lot to say about that. The most shocking statement I found in the introduction was, on any objective analysis, the risks of the COVID vaccines were carefully managed and were far outweighed by the benefits. I would imagine all the people that you are supporting would disagree with that for themselves. And that she does admit there must be appropriate financial support for those rare cases. They love to say rare, don't they? Suffering side effects. So that the current payment system requires reform. So I'm sure you've got strong views on these statements. I'm just going to open the floor to you for your reaction to her speech and report and where your thinking is on it.
I could pick apart that's a lot that you said there. So I could pick apart quite a lot of them. But in general, I would say that the vaccine and bereaved communities were incredibly disappointed. And there's so many different levels to the disappointment. Yes, it was acknowledged that the VDPS needed reform and had needed reform for a long time. So that's great, and that was needed, and that's something that has been needed, and that was discussed even before COVID that needed to change. So that's great, but that is only going to affect a very, very small number of people. And we're now, I don't know what the date is today, but we're pretty much a month after that report was made, and there's been absolutely no effort to for anybody to contact us to talk about what that reform might look like. And our efforts that we've made to contact Wes Streeting have not been responded to. So for something that's the one thing that's come from it, for something that's supposed to be done urgently, it doesn't appear to us that anything is being done. And I do think that some of our members have contacted the VDPS and actually asked them what steps are being taken to reform, and the VDPS staff have said we're not aware of anything that's being done. So that's the one thing. But the things that were missing were, in particular, a lack of a care pathway.
Yeah,
I think that was quite shocking. I don't think we expected there to be a very detailed care pathway. I know I expected something at least to be mentioned in there about there being some form of a care pathway, and I feel that this was an opportunity for the NHS, the government, to put something in place that would benefit. Perhaps, I mean, it probably wouldn't benefit us, but for people in the future who might be harmed. And there was an opportunity to put things in place to protect other people in the future, and that opportunity was missed. So I think that has been incredibly disappointing, because often a lot of the people in our community, they kind of have accepted, well, this is my lot now, but perhaps my suffering will benefit people in the future. Perhaps I haven't gone through it for nothing. So that was quite a shocking thing to get your head around, actually, that no, it doesn't matter. Suffering doesn't matter, and it's not going to be for the benefit of anybody else.
And this was actually, I remember your witnesses and your lawyers talking about the fact that this was what the vaccine injured really desperately needed, because obviously the long COVID clinics were for people who were suffering from COVID, but there was just nothing for people to be referred to. And then people, the doctors they were being referred to were just saying, well, these are safe and effective. It can't be the vaccine. And so people were left with literally nowhere to go.
Nowhere to go. And in all fairness to GPs, because there are sympathetic GPs there. I mean, we have NHS staff who were injured within our community. So we know, to try to be kind and towards GPs. They wanted, those who wanted to help literally couldn't do anything. My own GP was trying to do everything that she could, but she there was nothing that she could do. There was no guidance for them. We recently met with the Northern Ireland Health Minister, and we put together a 10-step plan for that included a care pathway, and we did that because the health ministers say GPs are the ones to go and talk to, but the GPs don't have the support, and this was an opportunity for the GPs to be able to get support. So the inquiry didn't just let down the injured, they let down GPs and medical professionals, doctors. They have stopped them from being able to do their job properly. And there was an opportunity to do something about that then, and they missed it.
And was it, I mean, have you managed to read the whole report? Because it's just vast, but have you looked at whether they even acknowledged that this was a serious concern raised by the vaccine injured?
I think so. This is, you couldn't make this up. So when so before the report was made public at midday on the 16th, Charlotte and I you go to a kind of private room with your lawyers and you read it. You have 3 hours with it, and you can't leave the room. You have to hand in your phone. You can't communicate with anybody. Wow. You have 3 hours to be, if you're a call participant, to read. And there were other call participants and their lawyers there too. So you have that time to read it. As soon as they put the book, this huge thick book on your table, it's like being in school. And then you're told at 9 o'clock you can open it and you can read it. And as soon as they put it on the table, I thought, this smells a bit strange. And then opened it, started reading it, and had an allergic reaction to the ink that it was printed on. And that took about 2 hours to dissipate. So it was, so I didn't actually get to read it in that time in detail that I needed to. But there were a few things that jumped out at me. Charlotte managed to read it. Our lawyers managed to read it. So between us all, we kind of grabbed the information that we really needed, because in that time we had to make a press statement. So it was it all happened very quickly. So I haven't had the chance to read the entire thing from start to finish. But the big thing for me that really jumped out for me was the statement. I don't know if you picked up on it. The statement that says, "We see no basis upon which to make the reporting of suspected adverse reactions mandatory."
Oh no, that's the first I've heard of that.
Right.
Wow.
So this is a very important statement because. And this affects the VDPS. So for people, and the media picked up on, the VDPS is they're going to get more money. People think we want money. It's not about that. So they're going to get more money, but you only get the VDPS if whatever you're dealing with is listed in the Green Book. And the Green Book comes from what's been flagged up and investigated by the MHRA. And the MHRA investigates things that have been flagged up enough times with the yellow card scheme. So the yellow card scheme, if it's not mandatory, most people don't know that you can file a report yourself. Most people normal people would assume that your doctor is the one who would file that report. So you stop at that hurdle here because the doctors they're not going to be told you have to file a report. They don't have to.
Yeah. So the whole system is not set up to pick up all the side effects.
We knew that already.
Yes.
So we completely knew that, and we talked about that before. But the inquiry now clearly states they're not going to recommend that reporting is mandatory. That's very concerning for anybody who plans on taking any vaccine in the future.
100%. And also because it lets the doctors off the hook again. And again, because if they made it mandatory, then doctors would get the education, because a lot of doctors don't even realise, or sort of it's not in the front of their mind, that there is a yellow card scheme. So when a patient goes and reports a serious side effect, they probably think, well, I'm sure my doctor will tell somebody.
Yeah.
But it's not really at the front of your training. It's not, you'd have to have a special interest in that sort of thing to actually do it. And then it's quite an onerous task, isn't it, to do it? Oh,
yes. Yeah. It's not an easy thing to go through. And there's been lots of research that's done. I think when I was putting together our proposal for the Northern Ireland Health Minister, there was I found 10 different papers that had been published that tried all sorts of different ways of incentivizing medical professionals to use the yellow card scheme, and they worked. So it's been proved that this works. Reports increase.
So in a way, it's a fake safety surveillance system at the moment. It's a sort of it's there, but it's not able to be used in a way. It could be used to be a proper safety surveillance system, but it's not. And even then, look at the number of reports they got compared to normal times during COVID. And they didn't think that was a safety signal when they were getting, thousands of times the level of reporting.
Well, I think it was the last public figure, I think, that was released. And if you don't have to do outside of an FOI, when they were producing the reports of how many people, it was 481,000 reports had been made from a combination of the different vaccines, COVID vaccines, so the different brands. Nearly 500,000.
Yeah.
But it doesn't work because you can report something, and I've said this before, you can report I had a migraine in response to the vaccine, but there is no way of determining whether you had a migraine that lasted one day or whether you had a migraine that you had every single day for 5 months.
Yes.
So they're two very different things. But you can't, there's no checking up. People don't follow up with you. They don't check in to see how you're doing. They don't see if you fully recovered. There is none of that with the yellow card scheme. It doesn't work.
Yeah. And it was interesting. I've started reading your book, and in so many of the cases, most people said they had no information about the yellow card scheme, but those people who had reported it just report it into this void. They don't get any response. They don't get any sort of clarification or investigation into their case. It's like the MHRA is just passively sitting there collecting reports, but not doing anything with them apart from putting it onto a chart. But it's such a lack of care for individuals who are assuming, oh my goodness, this terrible thing's happened to me. I've had a stroke or something. This isn't just like a sore arm.
Yeah.
Or somebody's died and they've filled in this report and they're not being contacted.
No.
I mean, what is that all about?
Please consider donating to the UKMFA. We're really grateful for all donations, no matter how small. Your donations enable us to continue to lobby for your right to informed consent and medical freedom to be upheld, and to provide resources to educate and empower the public. We're the only organisation solely focusing on medical freedom in the UK. So scan the QR code right now that's present on your screen, or go to our website at ukmedfreedom.org. That's ukmedfreedom.org, where you could donate via our donor box system or simply buy us a coffee.
And these are the kinds of things that came about with the witness statement that we submitted, all of the case studies that we submitted. It was very clear that this was a problem, and and it's been ignored. We have told them what the problems are. We told them very clearly, and they were ignored. But at no point, and we said this last year, at no point during the inquiry hearings did they say the vaccine injured didn't exist. So, not at all. No, and so they know we exist. They know what the problems are. They're choosing to ignore them.
Yeah. And also they're kind of minimizing you in the sense to say, well, it's just a few people, because they love to say the vast majority got, protected from serious COVID. And then that statement, which I said was the most shocking statement, on any objective analysis, the risks of the COVID vaccines were carefully managed. Well, that's nonsense, because nobody was told the risks. The MHRA didn't respond to the risks. They didn't warn people when risks like, VIT were coming out or myocarditis. That wasn't immediately communicated to the vaccine centres. People weren't being sat down and said, oh, you're a young male, there's all these risks of myocarditis, you might want to think twice about this because you're in that risk category. That wasn't happening. And then they said, and were far outweighed by the benefits. But the point is, to the person, the 30-year-old, the 20-year-old, who's, there was a tragic case I was reading yesterday in your book about a girl who'd done it when she went to uni. And she's now saying, 3 years on, 2 years on, her life's over. She's just been left, complete, chronic fatigue, all these neurological problems. The benefit to her was zero. So you can't say risks are always, being outweighed by the benefits, because that's an individual assessment. That can't be, that sort of population approach is unethical, actually, because you're not looking at individuals. If you've got somebody who with chronic obstructive pulmonary disease in their 80s, who was never ever going to leave the house again because they were so terrified, then the risk of having a stroke was probably a risk worth taking. But not to somebody who's already had COVID. They're 18 years old. They're apps. If they had, they had it and they had a runny nose and a bit of a fever for a day, there's no risk to them. So there's no risk of the disease to them. So there's no benefit from the vaccine. And I think it's that refusal really to go into to really engage with that, the fact that they just blanket treated everyone the same.
Well, I think to do all of that, and then so say, if you want to say it was safe and effective, and it did, there was a benefit to the majority of the population, but then you're still acknowledging that there's a small number of people, and you can't say whether it's small, you can't say whether it's rare or not, because the fact is you don't know. Nobody knows, and that's one of the we have a whole page in our information pack about how we actually don't know. We have absolutely no idea. It might be rare, it might not. But you cannot say that. There is no backing for that at all. And if it's just a small number of people and you're going to completely ignore them, then how can you say morally that that's the right thing to do? It's not the right thing to do. And if it is a very small number of people, it should be really easy to take care of us, shouldn't it? Shouldn't it be
100%.
easy? Yeah.
Yeah, because if going along with how the atmosphere was at the time and the coercion and the pressure, actually those people should have been treated like soldiers going to war, and then sort of put on a pedestal if they got and to be looked after and honoured, and your name's put on a on a memorial thing to say these people sacrificed for everyone, if because that was the narrative they were trying to sell, but they didn't follow through and honour those people who sacrificed themselves, which just showed how rotten the whole thing was.
And that kind of leads quite nicely into talking about the Fallout book, actually.
Yeah.
Because that came from a desire to honour the experiences of the people who submitted case studies as evidence. And that was part of our evidence as core participants. And that was never published by the inquiry. And if they had published those case studies, then we wouldn't have found the need to do that. But that's what those stories need to be honoured. And if the inquiry wasn't going to do it, then we would do it.
And how could they justify only publishing part of your evidence? I mean, I think that shows what a failed inquiry this is. I mean, we put in our own witness statement. We were asked to under Rule 9 by Baroness Hallett because we'd applied to be core participants, and she said, "No, you're not going to be core participants, but we want you to put in a witness statement." So we put in. I mean, it took like 4-6 weeks to write. It's 50 pages, fully referenced, all done the way they wanted it. It's never been seen again. We submitted it by the deadline. We were dealing with their lawyers. But then they told us afterwards, well, it's up to us what we put on the website, so we can choose. And I was like, well, that's not fair. That's not justice. That's not transparent. And now it seems even your evidence, not all of it was published, even though you were a core participant.
We had I think it was a 77,000 word witness statement, which has been published. So that is on the website. And then we submitted an additional evidence, so another document, and then the case studies. And the additional evidence and the case studies were never published. And we asked them repeatedly. And our lawyers asked them repeatedly. So again, it shows that it's almost, this is a whole lip service thing, isn't it? It's like they're trying to do the right thing, or they're trying to show they're doing the right thing, but they're not actually doing the right thing. It's kind of, it feels like the conclusions were written before it started. I mean, when I was watching that module 4, it felt like the framing was very clear. Like, we've almost accepted these are safe and effective, and we just need to iron out these little sort of issues which have come up, but they're side issues. This is an overall success, and we must speak against it. There was no I said this at the time. The whole thing was biased, but it was set up on the premise that they were safe and effective, and there was not going to be any question at all about that.
Yeah, and that premise was never even interrogated or didn't need to be proven.
No.
I mean, I thought your book is amazing, and I'm so grateful that you've published it. I mean, just to sort of describe, the last 2 or 3 days I've been reading through about a third of it, and you've got over 100 cases, haven't you? They are harrowing. And what sort of really came across to me was that it's people of all ages, but actually predominantly under 50. These are mainly young people, which is quite shocking. And I think the enormity of the human suffering and loss that is documented within it is absolutely heartbreaking. But because it's been written for an inquiry, the cases are very short. It's sort of 2 pages max, isn't it? And so what comes across is this quiet dignity and understatement in it. But the pain that is unspoken just absolutely pours out of the pages. It's so obvious. And it feels like it's this damning indictment of the medical profession and how badly let down they've been, but also just really clear evidence that what is such a clear public health disaster, self-inflicted. And you managed to get this out in less than a week. And
5 days.
And it's got to number 1 in the disability book section on Amazon. So tell us a bit about what that was like to, get that out so quickly, and also to read those stories again, because in a way I guess that brought up a lot of that pain, which although you're living with it every day, it's really confronting when you read through them again.
Yeah. So first of all, Charlotte managed all of the case studies originally. So what the whole process, how it went about is I set up a 500 word kind of template to guide our members on the kinds of things that we wanted to cover in it, and we wanted to keep it short. People could write thousands and thousands of words, but we wanted to keep it short. So Charlotte edited all of those in January 2024, I think it was. She worked individually with people, and there were a couple of other people helping her, but mainly that was Charlotte. She did an incredible job. And then so we submitted it. When it became apparent the day after the inquiry, it was a bit odd actually. I kind of woke up the next day, and I felt this. It was a sense of trauma, but it wasn't my trauma because I'm not relying on the NHS personally. So it wasn't a personal thing going on. I'm not relying on the NHS. I'm not relying on the BDPS. I'm doing my own thing. So this was not a personal response to it, but I just felt the overwhelming sense of disappointment from our members and a sense of kind of respect for the work that Charlotte had put into it. But I felt dreadful, physically awful. And I lay there and I just thought something's going to come from this, and it was a bit of a spiritual experience, to be honest. I lay there and I was just thinking the answer's going to come. And it just came, and I could see this book, and I could see the cover, and I could see the color of the cover and the title, and all of it just came to me. And I thought that's what we need to do. And I called an urgent meeting with the trustees. And this is less than 24 hours after the report. And I said, okay, what are we going to do to our members are very disappointed. This is going to be really big for our community, actually. To not be heard is causes a lot of damage. And we went through some ideas, and I said, I know this is what we should do. We need to do a book. We'll just publish them ourselves. We'll do it. And their faces were a bit of a picture. Done. And then I said, we're going to do it by the end of the weekend. And they all kind of, and then one of the other trustees went, I want to do a book. And right, okay, we're on it. So we called, I called someone else within the group who I knew liked writing and editing, and the three of us. Charlotte was really poorly, so Charlotte needed to take care of her health that weekend. But the three of us, we dropped everything and we didn't stop for 5 days. And it was because we had to get consent from everybody again.
Well, yes, I was thinking about that. It's massive, and there's over 100, isn't there?
Yeah. There's double that. These are just the people that we could get consent from quick enough.
Okay.
So there's lots more, and there will be more additions.
Part
we will
2,
put more in there. And we just worked like crazy doing the layout, the editing, the proofreading, reading them all again, getting consent. Getting it all sent off to print, all of it. It was just non-stop, and it was 5 days, and it was we were doing something that felt very, very important, not just for our members and the individual people that are in there and for our group, but for the future. It felt important to have something documented that in the future, because there will be a day of reckoning with this.
Yes.
And in the future, we want to be able to say they knew this happened. They knew it. This is everything that happened. It's all in here, and they knew it, and they chose not to publish it, not to acknowledge it in a meaningful way. And they knew, and that's going to be important for the future. It's important for our members now because they feel heard and validated. Yes. It's been amazing them, getting their copies, and it's had a really big impact on them. But it's important for the future. And just to add that all of us work non-stop completely for free, and all of the profit from the book is going to fund a grant scheme that we've set up. So because there's no treatment pathway, we're going to have to do that ourselves too. So we do want to encourage people to buy. We've all bought our own copies, literally all of them. And I appreciate, Liz, you didn't ask for a free copy. You literally went and bought it yourself. And I really appreciate that. We've raised over £1,000 so far.
Fantastic. And I just really encourage people to buy it because it, as you say, it's such an important thing. And it's also such a triumph of human spirit, actually, that you guys, it's no mean feat to publish a book in a week or 5 days, but like you've all got serious health problems and, serious issues with energy and concentration and all of those things. But that just shows what that sort of determination to get truth out there is a very powerful motivator. So just I was jotting down a few points that really came to me as I was reading through these cases. The lack of informed consent is coming across right through the book. In many cases, people just weren't getting leaflets or information until after their injection, which is an absolute mockery of proper medical practice.
It's becoming so that the best way to stay in touch with the UK Medical Freedom Alliance is via our Substack, which you will find at substack.com/@UKMFA1. That's substack.com/@UKMFA1, where you'll find our articles and videos published. You could subscribe and be one of the first to get our very important content.
That there was never any discussion of medium or long-term risks. Then you've got how many of the injured were skeptical before even getting their jabs. It was really interesting. A lot of them already were doing it against their own best interests, but then there was this sense of moral duty that a lot of them felt, I'm doing this to help other people, or some of them were being really badly coerced. But very few seem to be very scared of the virus, which is interesting. So they were getting their vaccines not for ethical medical reasons, that they were, and doctors were allowing this to happen, people to come to get a medical treatment which has a risk of side effects, because all medical treatments do, but not for their own benefit, not because they wanted, against their better interest or their better sort of sense that maybe this isn't a good idea, or they have no choice, that feeling, I don't have any choice, I've got to do it. All of those are just against an ethical medical consultation. So that really came across strongly. But then how shocking it was that people who had been injured and had severe side effects were being coerced or advised to have more jabs.
That shocked me, actually. I've got to say, reading all of them, I was surprised myself, even though, I'm in this world and have been in this world for 5 years. I was very surprised to see the number of people who were not well after their first, and they were told to go ahead and have a second. So,
and even told, well, now you're like not very well, you're high risk from COVID, you must have another one. And you just think, how many times in the past has somebody who's had some sort of anaphylactic reaction to or penicillin, or even a rash to penicillin, no doctor would touch them with penicillin ever again. So this shows that something happened with all of that psychological propaganda, fear-mongering, everything that was going on, that whole culture actually stopped doctors behaving like doctors. They were like automatons. They just had this blind spot, and it was an ideology, and people had to have it because this was such a good thing. And so doctors refusing to sign exemption, letters, people who had strokes or heart attacks or myocarditis being told, well, you have to have another one because I'm not signing an exemption letter. I mean, how horrendously they were let down.
But I mean, I do want to say that not all doctors were like that. My own GP I did have a curious conversation with her. Would you tell me to get a second? More because I was interested in what she would say. And she said, I couldn't possibly advise you on that. And that was fair enough for her to say that. And she was, so not everybody. And there are other people whose GPs have been supported, but it goes back to that they weren't getting the support that they needed. They were being told certain things. They were working in such a hectic environment, chaotic environment, where they weren't able to stop and breathe and think and remember what they went into medicine for and to do their own research. A lot of them didn't have the time to do that.
Well, they were being coerced and there was that shaming, the massive shaming of anti-vaxxer or vaccine hesitancy or COVID deniers, all these words that were going around, and nobody wanted to be in the out group, did they?
Yeah.
And it was interesting how many, again, of the cases I've read where doctors had verbally confirmed to them, yes, I think this probably was caused by the vaccine.
Yeah.
That so few doctors were ever prepared to put that in writing.
We have, we did a survey, our members, about 40% have got it in writing.
Right.
30% have been told verbally, but won't put it in writing. And 30% are still looking for confirmation. I'm almost more concerned about that 30%, whether doctors would tell them but not put it in writing. That's a big problem. That's a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I think just looking at the impact on people's health, it's a very multi-systemic damage, isn't it? That's caused by it. It's very unusual that something could have such profound effects across, neurological system, cardiovascular system, immune system, even psychiatry. People were having reporting psychosis, and these strange constellations of symptoms and diseases, multiple diseases developing, which just wouldn't have happened before COVID. You might have a person who presents with POTS, but not with lots of other diseases all at the same time. So this was doctors should have been flagging, why am I suddenly getting these, people who are previously healthy who are suddenly crushingly ill? But it's not just one thing. It's like, they've had some myocarditis and they've got POTS and they've got that's just not normal.
I had over 40 different symptoms.
Yeah.
It was crazy. It's a crazy collection and it's terrifying. Some of them are really terrifying. It's just very strange things happening in your body and your mind. It's and there's physical sensations that are very strange. One of the strangest for me was feeling like there was a mobile phone inside my stomach, just buzzing and going off. That's scary.
Yeah.
Suddenly have that kind of feeling.
And modern medicine's not well set up to deal with this sort of multi-systemic issues because they're so reductionist. It's like, well, either you have a hormonal problem, so you need to see an endocrinologist, or you have a cardio. And so then people were just being sent off to specialists who would go, well, but they weren't putting the whole picture together.
No.
And I just think, and then the other thing that obviously came out of that reading the book was just how the devastation just affected the whole of people's lives. So it wasn't just the physical illness, the emotional pain, the financial devastation, and their trust in society, that lots ended up with PTSD. Many were suicidal. So many say that their
73% of our membership have considered suicide. It's very high.
That's just devastating. That was really breaks my heart. That's just horrible.
And it's trust. Trust is an interesting topic to bring up, actually, because you don't just lose trust in the medical system, but also in the government, in the media, and you lose trust in your own body, actually, and you lose trust in it's like having a narcissistic, abusive situation to deal with. It's very much like that, because then you go through narcissistic experience, then your entire trust in everything that you thought you knew the world was comes under question. And that's exactly what happens when you have vaccine damage, because you go into it thinking somebody's going to be there to support me. That doesn't happen. You lose friends, you lose family members, you get judged and isolated, and you lose all of those different things that you mentioned, money and you lose trust in everything. And that if the COVID inquiry, just to bring it back to that a bit, the COVID inquiry, the purpose was about how do we rebuild trust. It's not, you can't come back from that. There was the opportunity to come back from that was in the inquiry recommendations from the point of view of the injured and bereaved. And they failed. I don't think they're going to rebuild that trust.
It was that sense that your lives became the inconvenient truth.
Yeah.
That people would rather just pretend it's not happening rather than engage. But that is, the gaslighting, that people are describing is beyond belief. The fact that some people with, seizures, tremors, weakness, couldn't walk, were told they had a functional neurological disorder, which basically is psychosomatic. That must be so hard to hear when people are just denying your experience.
Yeah, it is. It is. And that, again, it goes back to that trust. Well, am I losing the plot? So maybe, how would I know what it feels like to lose the plot? Maybe I am. Maybe it is something like that. Okay, yes, I will take the psychiatric medication, but that medication then makes you worse.
Makes you sicker.
It's
Yeah. And what was interesting was the vaccine, coming back to the vaccine damage payment scheme, how many people, however bad their situation was, they said at the end of their report, I didn't bother to apply because I knew I wouldn't get anything.
Yeah.
And obviously, because it's a huge effort, the one case that I found of somebody who did get it, it took 18 months.
Yeah.
This isn't immediate financial support, yet these people have lost their incomes. They're also facing huge costs to try to get the help they need to, get decent food and supplements and see private practitioners because they're not getting the health. So waiting 18 months is just not an option, is it?
No.
But yet that was what and so I guess a lot of people just thought I can't waste my energy.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's quite a brutal process, and it's only a 2% success rate. So it's understandable that people think I'm not going to apply.
Yeah, 2%. So is that all that have got it so far?
Yeah. So the UK, there's a published paper of research on VDPS all around the world, and or the equivalent, and the UK comes last at 2%. Japan's the highest at 74%.
Okay. So what are your thoughts on how the best, fairest way for the VDPS to be reformed? What would it look like? What would a humane and fair and just system look like?
That's quite complicated. I probably need to bring something up to be able to refer to that, actually, because we have some very specific guidelines that we think should be part of that. But in summary, the amount of money needs to be reflective of inflation. So it hasn't changed, I think, since 2007, the amount of money. So that needs to change. The causation needs to change. So most people don't get it. They're denied based on causation. But like we said, the causation is based on the Green Book. So if you're going to use causation based on the Green Book, then the Green Book needs to be updated. And that goes back to the yellow card scheme. And so if you're going to use that way, you need to make changes starting from the reporting system. If you're another way of looking at causation would be likelihood. So it could be evaluated on how likely, and if it was over a certain percentage of being likely, being related to the vaccine, then perhaps it could be done that way, rather than having it has to be 100% causation. So then the disability needs to change as well. So right now you have to be considered 60% disabled. And so that needs to change. Perhaps the amount of money that was given could reflect the level of disability. There are some countries, their schemes, it doesn't have to be permanent disability. So, whereas in the UK, it has to be permanent disability. So that's something else that could be changed. There are so many different ways that the VDPS could be improved. The method of assessment could be improved. The medical professionals who provide the diagnoses, they're ignored. So it could be that you actually looked at the medical professionals, the ones who have seen us and treated us and diagnosed us, and actually listened to what they've said, rather than go through finding reasons for there not to be causation or disability. So there's that. There's so many different ways, and the whole process could be done with kindness. It's just horrible. You fill in a form, send it off. To be fair, you don't have to fill out too many details for the form, because they then request your medical records, and they go through everything that's ever happened to you in your whole life, and they look for those things to explain the reason why you've got sick. So but it can be, you can be involved in that conversation. You could be treated with a bit of kindness. There could be signposting provided. So as soon as you've applied, then have you been given a support system, which ideally, because we're a registered charity, it would be reasonable to expect them to be sent to us. So I think there's 25,000 applications for the VDPS, and we don't have 25,000 members. So there are people out there who still probably don't have a support system in place. There are lots and lots of ways that it could be improved.
And first, they need to set up something which actually takes consultation from groups like you, so that when this is reformed, it's done in consultation with the people who it affects, because otherwise it's just,
Yeah. We have lots of ideas. We've produced lots of material related to how to improve VDPS, and our charity sponsored a symposium in September last year where we brought together experts from around the world who talked about what the VDPS could look like, and that report from that is coming out, I think, next month. So we've done actually a lot of, we facilitated what the government should have been doing, but we've made it easy for them. This is what would work. This is, just start it. We'll help you with that. And this is what we said when we met with the Northern Ireland Health Minister. Look, here's the steps. We've done this research for you. These are the things that need to be done in order to support the vaccine damage in Northern Ireland, and we can help you make that happen. We're there to make sure this doesn't happen to other people again.
Yeah, that would be amazing. And do you feel like there's been a shift in public recognition of you guys? Has that shifted in the last year since we last spoke? Is there now more acceptance and concern from the public about your plight?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen this change in the last 5 years. I've seen a dramatic change, and I think it's just gradually happened. I don't know, maybe more in the last year or not, but I think it happened since the beginning. And that was something I thought, actually, when I heard the 10-minute speech that Baroness Hallett, I was in the room when it was being shown, and I just thought, she's completely out of touch with public opinion. It was like there were two different worlds going on. So I have a market stall, and it's been an interesting place to see the conversations change over the years. And I have some of our charity information is on the corner of the stall, and it always sparks interesting conversations. And it's higher than 9 times out of 10. They're compassionate, they're kind. Most people say, I know somebody who's affected, or if they'd had it, I've heard people say, you know what, I've had vaccines my whole life, and now I will never ever have another vaccine again. And these are people who, they might even have had every single COVID booster, but something in them has just gone, you know what, no, I'm not doing this anymore. So the conversation
her speech felt like she was speaking it about 4 years ago, didn't it? It was so incongruous with where we're at. It was almost like, what are you?
That's what
where have you been the last few years?
Yeah, it didn't make any sense to me, and it didn't reflect not just the vaccine injured's reality and bereaved's reality, but it didn't reflect the general public as far as I see it. I know that's not everybody, and I know there are some people who perhaps agree with everything that she said, but I don't come across anybody like that now. I don't see any of that. I felt like it was completely out of touch.
Yeah. So we should probably start to come into land, because it's nearly an hour, and I don't want to take up too much of your time. But is there anything else you really wanted to bring up which we haven't thought about or mentioned so far?
No, just to encourage, please go and buy the book. Please let people know about it. Know that you are financially supporting treatment pathways, and that we're still here. Send people to us if you know people are suffering. We still meet people all the time who don't know about us and need support. So if you do know somebody then who does need support, if they're injured or bereaved or caring for someone who's injured, then send them to ukcvfamily.org.
Yeah. Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for your time, Caroline, and just your amazing work. You are such an inspiration. And would just echo that. Please go and buy the book. It's just such an important historical document that really people need to get out there, share with your friends, talk to people about it, because there will be people out there in your community who will be suffering in this way and maybe still feel shame or silence, like they can't talk about it, and we need to support them. We've got to do the right thing.
Thank you.
All blessings on all your work, and just come back and if you want to update us on anything. We're right behind you.
I will. Thank you so much. Thank you for your support.
That's okay. Lovely to see you. Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
I think this is a great time to remind you that when you get to the end of the video, if you're watching it on YouTube, you will find 2 links to further videos, which I'm sure you will find fascinating. And it's also a great time to remind you to click follow and like and subscribe so you're alerted when our new videos are published. Visit our website to get immediate access to our media and presentations, our campaigns, our podcast, our Substack, legal help with support, and our open letters. The address is ukmedfreedom.org. That's ukmedfreedom.org. You can sign up there to receive our newsletter, so you're notified then of our new campaigns, our open letters and calls to action, and any other important updates. Oh, by the way, you can donate there too.